and it looks like I'm live and I'm recording now. I got the little red dot. So today is the second to last day of April. Good Lord, man, we're a third of the way through the year already.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just great. So anyway, Mark Wriggle here. This is John Lavenia, Success Mastermind. I see Gail. Hey, Adrian, it's good to see you, guy. Yeah, probably hear a little bit more about what's going on. I'd love to hear about it. Edward, how you doing, man? Yeah, and we'll do the yeah, that's right, the Glenn thing. Evelyn and Daisy and Sanders here. Great, Carl. Hey, Jane. Adrian, my aviation brother, and Ingrid are, and we may have some stragglers that come in. I'm not going to take a lot of time to. Let's just kind of get into this. I got a couple things I want to show you. We're going to do a continuance from about actually 6 weeks ago now, when I started. What was the book? Here's the book. When I was doing this book and walking through, this is actually a really interesting book, and I actually know some of the names in there. So it comes from my generation of growth in the Marine Corps as a young and mid-level officer. So it's kind of interesting to see a few of those names and knowing that I worked side by side with a couple of those guys. But in any case, let me share my screen, and we're going to continue. This is the second 20 of the 30 altogether. But the first thing I want to talk about, because I think there's a distinction that we need to kind of keep in mind, is the difference between principles and traits. And I'm sure we all understand that, but I'm just because what's going to happen in my discussion here, you're going to see some of these things and go, I think I've heard about this. Yeah, repetition is the mother of all skill, right? So we're gonna pound on a few things that we have previously, and that's how we continue to learn. But this actually in the Marine Corps, principles. So principles are kind of your rules, your laws, the things that you kind of govern how you do things, how you act. It's the ROE, rules of engagement, that kind of stuff. And then the traits are really kind of the guideposts, the measuring sticks. As it is, as it were. So when we talked about dependability and bearing and courage and decisiveness, et cetera, these are the things that somebody's putting a value or putting a number to and saying, this is where you stand in the, in the pecking order, or how good or maybe not so good that you're doing, and room for improvement. And that's that. So I just want you to have kind of an understanding of the difference, because when we go into this book, when you go into these next 10 principles of the book, we're going to be talking again about principles. Let me maximize this. Everybody can see that okay? Everybody see that? Okay. So we're talking about the second 11 through 20, 14B, and Warfighting Lab. This is a guy that was out of this. And then here's the book that we're covering. A couple pictures. I like throwing a couple old pictures in. I look through the stuff that I have, and I just you kind of know the drill. This is the MO for what we do in my sessions. But to the left, that was back when we were preparing to go to Iraq, and we were actually in Belton, Missouri, at the reserve station there, going through. You can probably NBC training, and what those suits are, those are charcoal suits. And we were going through the gas training and donning these suits, and we had to work for many hours in these things. I actually have pictures when I was actually on site where I went at Camp Fox initially in Kuwait. And we were wearing these things, and when the temperatures get up there and you've got a gas mask on, your helmet and all your gear, and you're wearing this thing, it's like a furnace inside these things. Yeah. It's the best weight loss program on the planet. Jenny Craig has nothing to say about this, man, I'll tell you. So, and you can see, we look at, this was right after one of our sessions. You can see, a few guys trying to put on a good smile there and look like, yeah, this was cool. It wasn't cool at all. But it's, it's one of those things that we all learn. In our own positions, in the old scheme of things, we have to go through these times of training. So as we train, we will act. We want it to be muscle memory, a mental memory sort of skill that we acquire at some point. So we just know what to do. We don't even need to think about it. And then to the right is what we had these little barriers. And in my time there, at least in the initial hours and also in the Gulf, we had these as well, these little kind of anti-scud or anti-missile bunkers. And you run into these, and then you can see you sit face to face along the outside edges. This is reinforced concrete, and you have you can see the sandbags that kind of curve around to help mitigate some of the flak, or some of the shrapnel that might happen in that case. But I have to tell you, where we were at, yeah, we were going into these things at one point. We're going into these things about every 20 or 30 minutes. And it was an all-nighter almost. But I think we heard a couple explosions, 15 miles away. So these things, and Scud missiles, if anybody knows anything about the Scuds, they're not very controllable. Once they fire them, they kind of go where they want to go. It's not something where you've got a really literally driven piece of hardware that's coming at you, and it's going to hit exactly where it says it's going to hit within about a 5 or 10 meter area. That doesn't happen. So while it causes a little consternation, gets the blood going, and you just don't know. It's that one time that you say, "Oh, I'm so tired of this." It's the boy that cried wolf episode, and that's the time that it gets you. So you take everyone seriously, and you move through that, and then you get back out when you get down the all clear, and you go back and keep doing your work. So that's just the nature of the business. Okay, so here are the second 10. I guess the way I'm not going to read these things verbatim. I'm not going to do that in each one of the slides. There's about 5 slides because there's 10 of these. But this is really in the Marine Corps. And much like you do in all the businesses that you do. If you've ever worked with a team, you ever worked with an environment where you've got other players, people are looking up to you, especially if you end up in a supervisory or ownership capacity. They're looking to you, and they were saying, what's this person like? What do they do? How do they act? Is it a do as I say and not as I do thing? Well, you're not going to gain much respect and dignity out of that one. And that's just human character. Just get on board with it, because it doesn't work that way. People might smile in your face and say yes, or 3 bags full, but they're only doing it because maybe out of respect of the position and out of fear. They're not doing it because they actually respect you as a person or as a leader, and understand that you'll get down there and you'll swab the decks and you'll clean the the toilets and all the other stuff. And you'll do all the bad things that they do, and you show that you can do it. You lead from the front. You don't lead from the rear. That's the way it works. So we're going to go through these second 10 principles. First one, decision-making by analogy. We ended up the last session like 6 weeks ago talking a little bit about the C stories. And the reason I've made this sort of connection here may seem a little confusing. All we do, and I would say we do this almost daily in our own lives too, is one of the ways that we are able, in the JLSM environment, we hear this all the time too. We use examples to emphasize certain things that we are conveying, either by the facilitators or in the discussions that we have as individuals in a facilitated discussion like we're having here. So, and that's what I mean by C stories. There are people who have had the experiences and use those to help others who have not, maybe have a better understanding of how those work. And we have several levels of education and growth, AWS and EWS. Now, and I'm speaking to mainly the officer corps here, but these are schools. And this is, when I say company grade, this is second lieutenants through captains. The guys go to this school. Command and staff is typically majors and lieutenant colonels. Sometimes you might see a colonel in there, at least in my experience. They go to the next level school, and they talk about a little bit at the AWS level. This is tactical. Then Then when they go to the command of staff, that's operational, that's bigger battalions and regiments, et cetera. And then when they go to war college, this is strategic thinking. This is typically your O6s, captains in the Navy, colonels, and flag rank officers, or flag grade officers, your admirals and your generals, and they go there. And by the way, there's a civilian component of that too. And on that side of it is usually GS-14s or 15s, even SES attend some of these. And these people, virtually every single one of them, I'd say, has a top secret SCI, segmented compartmentalized information clearance. And that means that information comes from different sources, and that helps keep those sources kind of, keeps them aloof, so that you don't necessarily know where each piece comes. And that's why you carry those kind of clearances. And each one of those, and the enlisted ranks have the same thing. They have an NCO school for guys who have just made corporal or sergeant. And then on E4, E5, they have staff NCO school, and then they would have a top level school, and like sergeant majors and master gunnery sergeants, and senior chiefs and master chiefs. Those guys at the E8 and E9 level, if they're in the command billets, they typically also go to war colleges. They can go to the war college as well, because they're major commander. They're the right hand man or woman, literally, of the commander, the commanding general, etc. So they need to hear the same stuff in the same way, out of the same mouths of babes, so to speak. Now, cross train. The whole process, and you see this in your companies, I suppose, is from the very beginning. We are screening. Through the course of promotions, we do pros and cons through the evaluation process, proficiency and conduct marks with young enlisted people. And then we go into fitness reports, is what we call them. And these are several pages where reporting seniors and reporting officers and senior enlisted do evaluations of people. And this is a continuing effort. There should be no secrets about what's going on here. And that's what I mean by the kind of the secret ceiling and up or out. We do this purposely because you have an obligation, you have a duty to make sure that if you're working in a team environment, particularly as a supervisor, this needs to be going on so there are no surprises. So if somebody goes like, wow, I thought I was doing a lot better than that, and I never got approached about something. Does that happen in the Marine Corps? Yes, it does. There's some that aren't, that don't take this quite as seriously, or maybe they don't understand. I can't speak to that as much, but I could tell you, if you weren't doing this, you'd be standing in front of somebody, in the higher echelon, and they'd be asking you some questions about why not. Because we have an obligation to train these guys, and these, we all know what the Marine Corps does, and we basically do. It's like Mattis's old saying, "No better friend, no worse enemy." We go do HADR, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, help people, save people. We do the other thing too, and along the way, there's a lot of training. There's a lot of things that go on, and a lot of evaluation. We have to know that the people that we're bringing along, they have to know as well that, whether they're doing a good job, where the areas of improvement are required, and how to get there and how to attain there. And some will, and some won't. And that's just the nature of the beast. Some people you can, it's like leading the horse to water, right? Unless you put his head and drown him literally until he starts to drink and choke. That's about the only way you're going to, get a horse to drink, unless he wants to himself, kind of thing. But that's certainly not the methodology you really want to use. Up or out speaks more to the officer corps, at least in the Marine Corps. You had so many times to get promoted, and if you missed a promotion board or you didn't get selected, then you were able to wait till the next one. You had so many times to do this, and then if you still didn't get selected, you were out. You had 6 months and you were gone. So that's another really good reason, because by that time, people have, they're looking at this maybe as a career path. They have families, they have responsibilities, and they're looking at life as a whole. And what am I going to do next? I'm sure the same thing happens in the Boeings and the Intels and the Dells of the world, and in every every organization that's got 5, 10, 100, or 20,000 people. Plug and play managers. It's a matter of training, and I kind of covered that before. But a key element I want to make sure is what if something happens to you, or you get promoted, or you leave the company, or something worse, at least in the military environment, happens to you. You want to make sure that the people that are in positions that are subordinate to you, who are you training? Because what if something happens to you and they need to step into your spot and take over? So groom them. Make sure they understand, hey, look, if something happens to me, this is what you need to know. This isn't about them taking your position from you. And I've met my share of people who kind of take that position. That is the wrong position to take. There's going to come a time. This is about the survival of the unit as a whole, not about just, some individual. We can argue the philosophy of that all day long in all these different venues. Somebody here might say something later today, but in this session, but that's just something to consider. And you want to push that responsibility down, and you want the lowest ranks to be learning as soon as possible, because you just never know when things are going to get really tough. And somebody who had no expectation. I mean, anybody here who watches football, ever seen the third string quarterback going because the first two got hurt, or the same with a lineman or something else? They're all practicing in the training all the time, and they're, and they might be the shadow team, etc., or the travel team, that kind of thing. But or they work with kind of the scouting team. But then they're sitting on the sidelines and they're waiting, and then something happens, and then something happens to the next person. The next thing you know, oh boy, I hope I remembered all those plays and what I'm supposed to do, because it could be your turn before you know it. And that could hurt the unit as a whole. End state and intent. This is really interesting because in the Marine Corps, we have a thing called the 5-paragraph order: situation, mission, execution, command logistics, and or administration logistics, command signal. The 5 paragraphs, and there are subparagraphs in this. And this is how things get explained when you're about to go on a mission. What we really attempt to do is not tell you every detail of how you are going to do this. We say that's what we mean by intent, or commander's intent. This is what my end state, this is what I want it to be, this is where we need to go. Now, we may not get there, but this is really this is our mission, this is what I want to intend. You figure out how you're going to make that happen. So that's when the details of that are studied and worked out in that group of leaders and subordinates to figure out, okay, I've got this much turf, or I've got this particular thing I've got to do. We've got these kind of capabilities, and we need to figure out how we're going to get from point A to point B. And I get to make the decision on how that happens. Now, I want input. What do you think? Bill and Frank and Susie and, Umpty Frats and, whoever's participating in that, that's the time that people get a chance to make comment to it. And that's the whole idea, like a chaos theory, because as I said right at the beginning of this, what is it? Plan is only good to the point of execution. That's kind of tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of truth to that, because once you once you go off the line of departure, all bets are off. Once you are in the air, if you're flying, you may have a plan, and you must have, I'd recommend you always have a plan, because if you fail to plan to fail, right? We go down that road too. But it doesn't mean that just because you have a plan, planners, my gosh, planners used to just have fits because they knew better. People who are in the planning environment, they put all these, all these great plans together. Oh, the life is wonderful, and we live, in a utopia, and we're going to be able to do this, and it's going to be wonderful, and nothing goes to plan. And there's somebody's always putting, because you don't know what the other side is going to do, or you don't know what all the events of the day are going to unfold and do to you. So you must be able to adapt and overcome. That's where that comes from as well. So that's why you have to have some leverage for the junior leaders and leaders that are in subordinate positions, because they're the ones in ground truth. They're the ones that are having to manage that as it goes. And they had this plan, and they're moving in there, says, boy, we didn't talk about this. This wasn't what was supposed to happen. Well, then you better figure it out, because you got all these other guys who are looking at you and, hey, what are we going to do now? So that's the point of this. But the idea of having an end state is, at least I know where my goal is. It's just like what we do in our businesses here. We know where do we want to be in a week, in a month, in a quarter, in a half year, in a year. And will that change even on a daily basis? Yes. You may attain that goal very quickly, and it happens more quick, and it comes, and then all of a sudden you have to make some adjustments, or it gets pushed out month after month, and then you have to adjust to that. And you just keep working and adjusting your schedule and how you adapt to make that come to fruition. Main effort in ROE. I talked about this. These are rules of engagement, but sometimes when you have multiple people doing different things, let's say we got people, building an airplane, and if one particular, we have to accomplish this more so than the other, you may have to take, if you have elements of equal capability, and there are some people that are able to do other things than other people, you may have to move some of them over to this if this is the priority, and vice versa. So that's what that really means. And it's just so that people have an understanding what is really the key to all of this. Distribute competence. I think we've seen this many times too. You can only go as fast as your slowest person. You're only as good as the person that is the weakest link. We've seen this in sports many times. I like to liken football because it's just a sport I happen to like. But the defense can have a stellar day, and everything can be going right, and they're just destroying the other team. They're holding them down, but it's not enough because their offense can't get going. They can't even break 100 yards, and they can't get a touchdown. They can't get a field goal. They can't break the 30-yard line on the other side. Their field goal kicker gets 5 chances and he misses all of them. I mean, when it rains, it pours, kind of thing. So the idea is that every person that's participating in the elements of that particular mission, the best thing one can do is do their best to make sure they're educated, that they're trained, that they're competent, they're as competent as they possibly can be, that they have an understanding of what's going on, that they can take over the reins if somebody goes missing or is out for the day, etc. So that's a point of cross training, so that you can massage your organization and continue to move forward, and by increasing the capabilities of those that are weakest in the chain. And it might be just that they're new and they just don't have a full understanding of all things that are going on, but to bring them up by raising the level of ability of the lowest components, you increase the capabilities of the entire component. So that's why you're trying to do that, bring that up to increase that. And then you just let them keep following. So you feed the stallions, you keep them moving forward, and as they increase, they can drag those less capable along with them. And it's just like if anybody's played racquetball, if anybody's done any kind of sport, if anybody's done any kind of activity where you've played or competed against people who are better than you, what is the natural tendency? Well, either you can just give up and say, I'm not going to do this, or if you're a competitor and you're fierce about it, you're going to do your best to be as good or beat them. That's the idea of competition. And what did that do? That just upped your game. Reward failure. Now, this is, I'm sure this is a touchy subject in many environments. I know even in the Marine Corps, this had, we had our moments. But the idea is that if you don't allow people to make mistakes, if you don't find out where those limitations are in your organization, when you're training, and that's one of the key points of training, then how do you know when the real thing comes along, or when you're really putting things together and you start having problems, if you hadn't kind of worked through these, when things are happening, that's not the time to have to deal with them. So the idea is let people fail and then find out why the failures occurred, and don't be afraid to fail and admit it oneself. That's do as I say, do as I do. No, that's the leadership by example. Everybody fails. Everybody, without exception, across the globe, in all things. We have our up days, we have our down days. It's important to know where those exist. And in an environment where either life is really on the line, or you may be in environments where you're dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts, et cetera. There's a lot of pressure in the environment, and things have to be right. So having an understanding and making sure that those, the failures that occur in the process of doing things and learning, and having some patience and having some understanding and some caring about what's going on. And I put catch 22 here because we are all susceptible to do this as humans too. We have this sort of zero defect mentality. We don't like to fail. Now in the Marine Corps we do too. Mission above all things. We need to meet that mission, but we also need to understand that, I mean, if we're going to meet the mission, how critical is the mission? That kind of comes under commander's intent, some other things that go on there too. But there must be a willingness to allow people to make mistakes. And it's different between somebody, say, making the mistake multiple times because they're just lackadaisical, because they are willful in doing that, they're malicious. They have kind of a no give a what attitude. We've met all people in the world. It takes all kinds. We've met our 10%ers in the world as well too, and whether there are avenues to make those corrections or make those moves as well. It's better. I tend to be a person who win more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And if you are explaining why things happen and you do it with the time involved, when it comes time to decision time, and you give people certain responsibilities and they take them and they gain some confidence, you find that you have a lot more agreement when you don't have the time to get agreement. So just food for thought. And I think that's a characteristic of most human beings as well. I'll leave that as that. Stepping stones for people who are kind of your stallions or your stars. Along the way in the Marine Corps, we send people to what we call B billets, and they go to recruiter's duty or to the drill instructor or inspector and instructor staff or formal schools. They can also be a recorder on a promotion board where they actually sit there and they literally are the recorder, and they sit in this room, and I get to do this. You have like 11 people in here, and you've got the president of the board, and they all argue. And I mean, whew, sometimes when it gets down to out of 2 people, we got 1 slot left. Things get colorful. I'll just put it that way, and they can get a little bit heated because people, it's not just it's the win. It's about fighting for somebody that you truly, because what's happening is these guys are evaluating, and I say guys, women and men both do this, and they're evaluating the entire record of somebody that's been in for 8, 9, 10, 12 years. And this is going to determine whether they put on that next little bar, that next little leaf, the next little stripe, and get a little more money, a little more prestige, a little more responsibility, gets maybe a choice of a duty station. A lot goes into all these kind of things. So it's important. And the point here is that typically those kind of environments and those kind of positions are left also to those that are the performance. And why would we do that? Why would we do that with drill instructors? Well, maybe because drill instructors are teaching and guiding our next series of recruits coming through boot camp or going through OCS or going through basic school for officers. I mean, so who do you want? Do you want the marginal guys, or do you want the water walkers and the people that really have this down and are going to demand performance to keep the standards high? That's the whole point of this. So, and the same thing goes on with NCO school, with staff NCO school, senior leadership school, etc. Glorifying lower levels. You don't ever forget, I guess where I'll go with this just really quickly is, don't forget where you came from, and always be willing to spend time with the troops. And I don't mean just, walk through, glad hand, shake, hey, how you doing? The standard, how's the family? How you doing? Do you have any hangnails on your toes? No, sit down with them, understand. And the other side of this is also understanding, even if you had been in that position at some point, you may have not been in that position for 5, 10, 15 years. And things have changed a little bit since your day of turning a wrench on a T-58 engine for a CH-46 as an example, or putting in the compressor blades and that kind of stuff. Now, there are manuals and a lot of things changed, but there may be things that have changed. Might be good to get down there and actually turn a wrench or listen and lit your subordinates at the, in these early examples of learning and participating in your organization. Let them explain what they are doing and listen to how they're explaining it. That way you also understand where they are in the level of competence. So it only helps you, it only helps me understand how and what my people are thinking and how they act and how competent they are. And it's not that it breeds familiarity, but it does help breed some trust. And it helps breed, and when I mean familiarity, I don't mean like, we're yucking it up, having a beer and we're buds, because there may come a time that we are demanding, literally, maybe the better word instead of demanding, that's a little coercive, maybe commanding, because those are orders. And you can see here, obedience must be instant. If you take the time to explain, and you can go to the next one, demand questioning, the why component. If you take the time to explain and let them walk through this and have some understanding and be willing to say, well, why are we going to do this? This sounds so stupid. And just let it roll off your back and have an understanding of why this happens this way. And then walk through the process. I tell you what's going on, even when I went through as a young officer in the 80s and 90s, and even through my whole career, as opposed to when I first went in back in the 70s, there was this sort of transition taking place, and we had an all-volunteer force. I tell you, there's a big difference between an all-volunteer force and one that's conscripted, because you grab anybody and everybody who's conscription with a certain age bracket. All-volunteer force, you can be discriminatory. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean somebody who is physically capable. They have toes that bend a certain, believe it, if anybody's been through MEPS and gone through these physicals and done all these little tests, they're doing this for a reason, because they need to understand that you have, with all the things that can be done in the military and where you can go and what you can do, and people's lives are literally on the line, both yours and somebody you might be protecting. They need to know that you have certain physical and emotional and mental capabilities. And they also need to know what your limitations are. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. I had one of my twin boys, Brandon. He had wanted to he wanted to be an aviator. He had 20/20 vision. He had all the requisites. He was vice president of his senior class. He was starting middle linebacker in a football team for his school. All these things were going his way. He couldn't distinguish between, when you look at these color charts, and you say a number like 39, and it's an amalgamation of all these little dots of kind of greenish and gray, and he couldn't find 39 in this one particular. So he could not distinguish between the kind of grays and greens. And you cannot be colorblind as an aviator. Sorry. And Adrian will probably be able to tell you that as well, being one himself. But, and he wasn't able to do it. He was pretty disgruntled about that for a while. But these are the kind of things that you have to deal with. So, anyway, the trust bank, just a quick, if you take the time to explain these things and go through this process and positive reinforcement and motivate and care for people, you're going to build some trust. And not trust, and it's not trust because they respect the position. It's because they say, this guy knows what he's talking about. He explains it to us. He takes care of us. He makes sure that we eat first, or we're clothed, and he asks us questions. He knows our jobs. He doesn't have us do stupid crap. Even though some things that we have to do because it's on high, we have to do certain missions that may be a little more risky. We trust this guy because we've had time to kind of explain it, and we've all been able to have a chance to walk through and question. It's not questioning authority, it's questioning the validity and the culpability of how this might all fall out. So that's just food for thought if you're in that environment on the civilian side of the house. values and mission. How you act, how you carry yourself, and how you treat others is going to is that's how people are going to look at you. So when I look at these primary and secondary values, you can see that a number of these kind of fall across the same lines of some of the things that we've talked about previously, and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, even with our own with our own day-to-day actions in our own businesses. Opposing traits. So we talked about this too. Haven't we gone through loyalty versus integrity? But how about loyalty versus criticism? Are you, are you loyal by shutting up and being a yes man or a yes woman? Or are you being loyal by actually responding and saying, why would we do it this way? Can I get some, amplification or clarification? Because if we do it this way, would this, and there's something else I want to key on with something like this too. If you take the time to teach subordinates, especially at the lowest levels, you build their critical thinking. They become smarter supervisors. They are much more adept at being able to handle highly stressful situations. And they're not as scared about doing something or have some fear because of what they think is going to happen to them by those that have command authority or adjudication authority over them. They're going to do it because at the moment they feel, for the same thing, that they've got these primary and secondary values, especially some say belief and mission. Now they're doing this because they know this is what they need to do and this is how it needs to happen. Planning versus improvisation. Yeah, we have this plan. We left a line of departure. All things change. I'm the one on the ground here. I don't need to call in and ask for permission. If I don't do this, seconds count. I'm making this decision now. I need to know that I can make this decision and not have somebody, telling me or dictating, hey, it's been 3 or 4 minutes. We've already lost 4 people. How long are we going to wait to analyze something before we take some action? I think John's talked about this. We've had this session, these discussions too, about make a decision, even if it's imperfect, but keep moving forward. You know the rest, and you can, if anybody wants to talk about these in the discussion phase, that's fine. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Those are the second 10. And I'll stop my screen share. I know I'm about 5 minutes over my scheduled time, but I'd like to open up for anybody who would like to speak out. But maybe you guys have some experiences in your own businesses or in other corporations or organizations you've been with that you've kind of gone through this sort or any of these kinds of events. I'll bet every one of us have gone through multiple occasions of these kinds of things. Anybody want to step out here? We're about 20 minutes to the hour or thereabouts. Anybody have anything? If not, I will cut this short, and I always reserve a little extra time. And I know John and Shannon have their 5-day session that's going on starting at 10 today. So he probably wants to sky out of here pretty quick. So I don't know, Mr. Lavenia.
Jump out. I just need 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go for it, please. Oh, okay. So was he going to jump out here? Were you going to jump out here, John, or you needed 2 minutes before you had a chance? Okay. So nobody wants to jump out here. We'll wait for John unless somebody has something to say. I can tell you this was a daily occurrence for me in the Marine Corps. And when I first went to TBS, OCS is kind of a screening, that's officer candidate school. And again, guys are coming out of college, or maybe they're coming up from the enlisted ranks and they are on a MECEP or NECEP program. And that's a pretty heavy duty screening process. But when they get to basic school, I actually, most guys that I talked to who are enlisted, when they find that I was prior enlisted, they appreciate that I already have kind of an ace in the hole from that perspective. But I met guys who had that, and they were more like, it's all about me. And I just thought, well, good luck with that. Pretty soon you're going to find out, somebody's going to find out how to make life miserable for you, and do it in a way that there's not much you can do about it or where it's coming from. So you're going to meet all types. Just understand that is out there, and it really doesn't matter what organization. We all have 10%ers, and that's going to be part of how things work in life. John, did you want to?
I did want to. Yeah, I did want to. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, John. I wasn't quite sure.
Great talk. Great talk. Oh, by the way, Tuesday puzzles. Yeah, I actually got the border done.
Oh, all right.
This is a heavy duty puzzle. Like, this is no joke. Okay. So that border took me 3 hours. All right. So while I was watching one of my favorite war movies, a rather modern one too, Hyena Road. It's a Canadian film. You ever seen that?
No, but Road? I'm gonna have to watch it.
Really, really, really well done. Hats off to Canadian film, whoever produced that. I think you can get it for free on Prime Video or Netflix or whatever. We don't do Netflix anymore, but we got Prime Video. I was always the guy who asked why, and not to be confrontational with the authority, with the instructor, the teacher, with the person who is clearly more competent than me, but to actually know, why does that work? Why does that hold water? I want to know so that I'm competent and that I could then teach another. And so when you brought that up, you brought up the idea of, we're going to engage the subordinate, even the lowest level person. Let's say we're the teacher or the manager of the corporation or whatever it happens to be. We're going to engage those people so that they have a higher level of understanding. Really what we're talking about is understanding. It's one thing to say, here's your duty, go do your duty, and you don't know why you're doing it, just because I said so. Parents do this too.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I said so. It's another thing to demonstrate or to explain, here are the ramifications of doing it this way versus not doing it this way. When I was training to become a automotive and diesel technician, there were people who wanted to shortcut certain processes. Students. And I remember one instructor said, all right, if you think you've got a better way to do this, show us why it's better and safer, right? So you can go ahead and qualify to change the curriculum, to, alter the doctrine, so to speak, if you can demonstrate why not only is it better, but it's also safer. And so that was their criterion if you wanted to challenge, the doctrine. And you're welcome to do that. And, the guys that were teaching, the young mechanics were masters. Nobody could do it better and safer, right? Yeah, you could take a chance, okay, but all right, we're going to blow up that engine. There have been times, and this is my background, wasn't military, but was, mechanical, the trades. And there were times when, people like really could damage themselves, and some guys got hurt and stuff like that. And so that was the criterion. And so I'm thinking, whereas my position was, I don't want to challenge this and say I've got a better way. What I want to do is understand why this way is the best, so that then I don't have any question about it anymore. There's no reservation on my part. You talked about, here's the subordinate or the young, low-ranking person who is more able to make decisions without questioning themselves or killing a bunch of time, because seconds count, right? Because they know why. Right? So it's not, at that point, it's just a matter of, I'll say this, it's not a matter of, oh, are they going to condemn me because I made the wrong choice? I'm going to make the best choice that I know how to make based on what I've been taught. I think probably the worst leadership is that which is authoritarian leadership. Do it because I told you so. And so now you've got no stake in the game. You're just like, a slave, basically. And that's been my perception of a lot of like the military world, which may be inaccurate because I haven't experienced it myself. My experience of the military world was an abusive stepfather who was in Vietnam. Okay, so, and he didn't apply good control. He applied authoritarian control, right? So there's a big difference. Hopefully I'm not making everyone dizzy. I'm pacing while I'm talking here. So anyway, those are the ideas that came up for me. Yes, I'm getting ready for CEO Freedom Challenge in 14 and a half minutes, but thank you, Mark. Great message. And I can see how that applies into all of our lives, you know, if we look.
Great. Thank you, John. I appreciate the comments. And just to piggyback on what you're saying here, really, when I look at across my career in this environment and these environments that anybody participates here, that why component to me is critical. Why am I doing this? Where do I stand in the, you know, in all the moving parts of this entity? Why is it that what I'm doing is important? Where do I fit in to all of this? What is it that we are trying to get to as a whole organization? What are we trying to accomplish? And I get to participate in that, and that's why I want to be in that part too. And also on the why side, just like you had mentioned, John, just it's not that you're questioning authority, but yeah, I'd like to know why I'm doing this, because once I have an understanding of this, now I know why I must do this. And from a safety standpoint, oh my gosh, I'm going to see if I can find this maybe for the next session. But you know, when I was, as everybody knows, I was in aviation, and we used to watch these films. Why do you do this? Well, if you do it this way, or you have your shortcut, John alluded to it. Well, maybe you lose a finger, maybe you lose a hand, maybe you lose your life. Maybe something happens and you hurt a bunch of other people because of your stupidity, because of your ego, or worse, you were malicious and you knew, and you were contradictory. That's, you know, that's even more heinous, but that's kind of far and few between. I'd call that much more the exception than the rule. But that's why you do these things, so that you know, there's a greater ability, there's a greater or a more positive outcome on the other side, because now that you understand why, you're more willing to participate and give it a go and explain to others who might be subordinate to you to do the same thing as well. So a number of reasons why you want to know why and why it's good to interact with. And I'd say something else when it comes to having interaction with people in your team. You get to know who they are. You get to find out, is this a person who's just an antagonist and they just hate life completely? Or is this a person who is truly trying to understand, and they have a bona fide intent to do great things, and they really want to participate and perform for the team and make the greatest outcome come for everybody? And that is their motivation. They are really a good person. They want to do it, and they're not trying to be disrespectful or unkind or questioning authority. They truly want to make sure that they can reach to the maximum height possible. Just more food for thought. Anybody else want to jump out? And if not, I'm going to cut this short. I don't see any hands. Hey, Gail, if you want to come on out, go ahead and unmute.
Just really briefly, you know, in my different things that I've done throughout my life, I've always found that it's very good to explain everything. So why you're doing things, and also to get in and do those things with your staff or the people, your team, because if they know that you're willing to do that, then they will be more willing as well. It's not as though you're standing up on top and saying, you must do this. If they know you're willing to do the same thing, it really makes things much easier.
I think that's a great point, Gail.
It's always been, you know, good for me in whatever I've done in the hotel industry, in my previous career in the church and everything. as long as I'm willing. I would never ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, and they know that. So that's always been good for me.
Leadership by example.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And participating and being there right with them, alongside them, when it's hot and it's cold and it's miserable or it's nasty, and everybody's motivation and their thoughts or attitudes are like, why the heck are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And they look and they go, well, heck, Gail's right next to us and she's sucking it up and she's putting it out and being there and trudging along right with us. Yeah, I'm not giving up. If she's here, I'm in it for the duration. As long as she's walking the line, so am I, that kind of thing. That goes a long ways for attitude and how somebody and where they think they are emotionally, mentally in something.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, good point, Gail. Mandy, I see your hand up. I'm going to lower your hand and come on up, please, ma'am.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, I really agree with what you and John were both saying, especially with John and the authoritarian leaders, etc. When I used to be in the management teams, what I used to do for my staff was I would always, probably too much sometimes, but not necessarily be their friend, but I was always interested in their lives, what was happening for them. Like you say, it was not just asking for the sake of it. So I would usually go and check how the weekends were on a Monday morning. If I knew that something was happening in their lives, I'd go and ask them about it. If they feel like you're really interested, then they're more interested in you and they're more willing to give for you. And I just think it's really important. They're your team. You should know what they are about, what's happening. And each person's so individual that by knowing what each one is like, helps you to then know how to approach them. You can't approach every person in the same way because each person's going to have their own issues or their own ways of doing things. Some will be more confrontational than others. And I think very much so, especially in corporate sometimes, and especially the lower down you are, people don't want you to be questioning why. They just expect you to get on with it. And I've always been someone to say why as well. And it's really, it means they don't value you. They don't care what you think if they're not prepared to allow you to say your bit. You don't have to take it. They can say, well, thank you for that, but this time we're not going to put that in place because we think it's not going to quite work for this reason, and that's fine. But at least you've felt like you've had your say. So all the people in my team, whether they were the supervisors or the rest of the people in the team, equally were able to say what they thought about something. And I'd be more than willing to say to them, yeah, we're doing it for that reason because of this. Whereas if some other people in the organization had put something together, it would be more a case of, well, we're just doing it. It's enrollment week. You're going to sit out there on the computer and you're just going to do it. And they're the ones that were on the front line getting all the issues from the students that were coming in. So it doesn't buy support when you're not there for them and allowing them to have their say and feel valued within the organization. So yeah, I think and I was really pleased to hear that you said that. I think the way that you dealt with the troops was really, really brilliant. Yeah, so good on you, because I think in the army it's even worse. I think in the Marines and that, I think it's even more likely that you're going to get authoritarian leaders.
Yeah, there are, got our 10%ers even in the officer corps. Yeah, there's a few that's like, do you not understand the fundamentals of humanity? Come on, guy. There's this term in combat, it's called fratricide. What do you think happens to some of these guys? I'm not saying it's appropriate, but if you wonder why that happens sometimes, and this miraculous hand grenade goes into some officer's hoot somewhere along the way, and somebody gets killed because maybe it's because they're getting too many of their own troops killed, and somebody finally had enough and said, this person's incompetent, and I'm not taking it anymore, and I'm not dying because of their crap. And yeah, it happens. I'm not, again. Yeah,
we don't have their back.
Yeah. So if you want to be self-serving, don't act that way and really understand your people, So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it was good.
You bet, Mandy. And I would like to piggyback one more thing on what Mandy's saying with an example. I was a young first lieutenant. I had just gone into what we call power plants in Marine Aircraft Group 26. It's an I-level, intermediate level maintenance, and power plants deals with engines for helicopters or fixed wing, but in this case, it was a helicopter group. And they also do dynamic components like the rotor blades and that kind of stuff, the things that move, all the blades, dynamic components. So we had a young corporal who re-enlisted, good guy, really highly technical, very well liked, a good leader. He had been recently married, seemed to be very happy. And his reenlistment bonus was $36,000 because he was in a very unique kind of niche for for the work that he did in the T-58 community. That's the type of engine that went on CH-46s, the little Sea Knight, the three main landing gear helicopter that the Marine Corps uses, and it's got the tandem rotors. Well, word kind of got out in the street that his attitude kind of started changing over the next few months. Come to find out, through some prodding and sitting down and talking with them, and Gunny Cole, Al Cole, who now lives up in close to Pullman, Washington. We stay in touch. He was my my gunnery sergeant for that organization, and he pulled me in one day. Come to find out that he said it this way. He said, why is Corporal, and I won't say it, why is Corporal so-and-so, why is he, what's happening to him, man? I mean, this guy just reenlisted. He's got a bright future. The guy is amazing. He teaching the young troops, but he is losing it. What is up? He says, well, he got married. Yeah, I think that's great. Fantastic. He sees this as a career path and he loves what he's doing. Says, yeah, but his wife is burning all his money up her nose. And everybody knows what that means. So he was trying to keep it quiet, and she was having fun snorting coke and burning all his newfound cash that he had hoped to maybe buy a home or do some other things and keep moving forward. And you don't think that would have caused some issues internally, and you're trying to be faithful and loyal to your new partner, to your wife, and at the same time try to keep it together and not show that you're having issues on a personal level because you have some concern that your fellow Marines are going to start looking at you differently, and you're a new leader as a corporal in the Marine Corps, and you don't want to tarnish that as you're kind of getting started in this career path. So there's a lot of pressure, and we ended up talking with them and having some conversations with them. Let them know that, on this front, we'll do whatever we can to help you out. And if she needs help, or if you guys need help, or you want to go to counseling, I don't care if you even want to, divorce. I didn't say it that way, but however you need to do it to make it work for you, we are here to help it work for you. And we went through some things when they went through some counseling, went through some stuff with the chaplain, etc., and kind of got it together. By the time I left to a different command, I don't know what the final result was years later. That's a question I had to ask Al. Maybe he does. But he turned around, and it was getting better for him. But it's amazing when that idea of caring. You spend some extra time, and you burn the midnight oil to help your people. They will remember that. And they'll step up, and they'll go to blows for you if they think that you're being, or the unit's being mistreated, and that's that's a whole nother subject matter. But just so that was a very interesting thing that happened to me as a young first lieutenant, a brand new first lieutenant. You learn some things very quickly early on. I see Evelyn's hand up. Come on out, Evelyn. We got a few minutes, so go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, I just, what you just touched on right there, to me, that's the key to everything. I mean, it not only builds respect, but it engenders loyalty. It'll turn on that loyalty like nothing else when somebody who's in charge, or, even just an equal, like a colleague, when they take an interest, like a real interest in what's really going on for that person. Sometimes, I've been in environments where as far as the personal communication to the group, about what's going on personally with somebody else, it was always, this person's doing the right thing. This person's doing something great. Look at this star. This person had a victory, blah, blah. And not that I'm saying that what's going wrong in somebody's life should be announced to the group at all. But what I'm saying is that if that person whose wife just left them, or their father just died, or, they just broke their leg or something like that, that communication has to go out to that person. I mean, a personal reach out from a superior makes all the difference. I just give an example. Not that I like to talk about myself, but it happened at work. I had an accident, and it was clearly a policy failing, because we didn't have any policy of students putting their backpack in the walkways. and I tripped on somebody's backpack strap and I hit my head on a desk. I mean, my arm went numb. The paramedics came. We had they strapped me down on a board, took me away in an ambulance. It was like a big deal. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me, oh my God, are you okay? Nobody went to the hospital to make sure that I was all right. It was like the next morning I showed up to work because I'm tough. And they said, oh no, you have to go home, because they were worried about legal. And the next time I saw my boss, the principal, I just, my eyes were wide and I said, did you realize what happened? I thought I was paralyzed. It was a big deal. I almost broke a vertebra in my neck. And he looked at me like he clearly thought I was going to sue. That's what his number one concern is. Not a thing, not a question about, well, oh my gosh, who took care of your son? And so I just think that reach out on a personal level and just an understanding, like you said, just a little bit of extra time to understand who this person is, what their concerns in life are. Do they have a sick child? Are they a single parent? What's going on with their life? Are they single? What's happening with them? Who is that person? I think just a little connection, it doesn't take long. Connection on that level really makes a difference. That will build loyalty. And that will be, that's the moment when, something goes wrong and the press is at the door and the leadership is under some kind of community examination, and it's in the press and there's a scandal. That's when, like you said, the fratricide, that's when either people will stand up for that, go to bat for that leader or not, or pile on. So I just wanted to add that. Great point, Evelyn, and I am in complete agreement. That's one of the fundamentals of Marine Corps leadership. That's, I won't say it's unsaid. You don't necessarily see it in the writings per se, unless somebody writes about it. But know your people. That's what they mean. Know your people. If you know your people, you know what's going on with them. Then all these little machinations that kind of go on, and you have a better flavor. You have a better understanding why it may be happening certain ways. So, by the way, folks, it's 2 after. We're past the top of the hour. Thank you, everybody, for sharing what you did. I am going to stop the record and